everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome back to another episode all about dolls. I am back this week with another wonderful and educational interview all about Care Bears. Yes, I know Care Bears aren't technically dolls, but honestly, Care Bears have dominated the toy industry on and off for like 40 years. So I think they are absolutely essential to discuss. Today I'm chatting with Vintage Grunge Girl, who chatted with me all the way from Australia. And this is a really fun episode. I don't really have anything else to say right now that's not Care Bear related, except happy spring, everyone. I'm so glad that the clocks have turned back. I really hate when it gets dark so early, and I'm just so ready for summer. We are going to jump right into this one. So, as always, follow me on Instagram, Iconic Dollcast, or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. Follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. And here is my interview with Vintage Grunge Girl, all about the iconic Care Bears. Okay, everyone, today I'm hanging out with Instagram's Vintage Grunge Girl, who is also chatting with us all the way from Australia. And today, she is going to educate me on the very iconic Care Bears. Before we get into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vintage Grunge Girl, which obviously isn't my legal name, but let's go with that. I'm a 40-something-year-old 80s toy collector who lives in Australia. I have been actively collecting 80s toys since 2015 after my second child was born. I started collecting Care Bears under the guise of, they're just for my kids, until I finally gave myself permission to collect them for myself. There is still a lot of stigma around adults collecting toys, which is just silly. I collect them because they make me happy. And I've always loved plush toys, even when I was a kid, even if it was just all my random toys that I would put on the bed at night to sleep with so they didn't feel left out.
I love that.
Just my personality.
I love plushies too, no worries. I still have plushies that I put on my bed to this day, so don't even worry about that. So today we're going to be talking about Care Bears. So I want to know what I found you because you obviously collect a lot of, like you said, 80s toys and stuff, but your emphasis on Care Bears is what really stood out to me. And this is the Iconic Dollcast. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, wait, Care Bears aren't a doll, but I definitely think they're still kind of in the same category as a doll. You play with them the same way. Maybe they don't have as long of hair as Barbie, but they're still pretty much, I would say kids would look at them kind of the same, and so would adults collecting them today. So what about Care Bears really speaks to you? Why do you like them so much?
I love Care Bears, and I've got a couple here. I kind of love that they're all the same but all different, so that when you line them up, it's this beautiful array of colours and different belly badges. So they all look the same, but they all have different personalities and different belly badges. And mostly they're soft and they're fluffy, and I just love them. I have them displayed in my house in cupboards with glass doors, like works of art. And it just brings joy into my life, seeing them there all the time. It makes me happy. It makes my house feel happy.
When I look at Care Bears, I kind of like to compare them a little bit to like the My Little Ponies, just because it is a very bright, like you said, when you line them up, it's just this like amazing color scheme.
Magical.
Yeah, it's magical. And like, it doesn't matter how you organize the colors or whatever, because it's just so bright and it always looks so good. When is the first time you became aware of Care Bears?
So I, being an elder millennial / geriatric millennial, as they call it, I'm on the cusp of Gen Y, Gen X. So I watched the cartoon as a kid on the television. So back in the 80s, you really only had what was on the TV. Obviously, there was no pausing the TV or recording anything. The movies on VHS and the toys in the store. I had one 13-inch Care Bear plush, which was Love-A-Lot, and I do still have that plush. It's moved everywhere with me when I moved out of home, and I'd always have it sitting somewhere on the shelf. It was never hidden away in a box, and I'd have other toys too at the time. I think I had like a Pikachu and an Eeyore toy, and my roommate at the time would make fun of me and tell me to stop being so childish and having toys on display. But I don't really remember the first time because I was like 3 or 4 when they really got into production in about 1985. So they've just always been around
Right.
since I've been around. Yeah.
So since the beginning, that's great. And
Yeah.
just as best as you can, how many Care Bears would you say you currently have in your collection?
Well, for the first time ever, I did a rough count of all of my stuff. Now, this includes plush, figures, like they made posable figures in the 80s. It includes pop vinyls, which they make, merch like bags, etc., brooches, enamel pins, and play sets. They made a lot. They made play sets. So back to your My Little Pony, you could play with Care Bears because they came with little accessories and they had a cloud castle which you could actively play with and little cars that they would sit in and drive with. And I have over 1,200 items.
Wow, that is incredible.
I wasn't sure if that was a lot until I told my husband and he went,
Well,
he guessed 300 to 400.
not even close. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out now. I was going to pull it out later. Have you seen or have you purchased yet the Barbie Care Bears?
Yes, and I bought the Chelsea ones as well, even though I don't usually collect Chelsea-sized dolls. They were just too cute not to buy. I mean, they're just gorgeous. Yep, yep. I've got three. I've
Absolutely.
got six of them.
So I love a good gimmick, and I love these. I think they're called like cutie reveals, but
Beauty
I
reveals, yeah.
when I saw these, I was like, I'm gonna ask you more about this guy in a little bit. I don't care about the Barbie underneath it. I just think it's so freaking cute as a Care Bear. So I figured you had him, but I just recently got these because I was like, oh my God, these are like, this is like the cutest thing Barbie's done in a really long time. And I know, and we'll talk about it in a little bit later, that Care Bears are kind of, I mean, you can go to the store right now and buy a Care Bear if you want in pretty much any size. So we'll get into that. But I want to go back and I want to talk about the history of Care Bears because I do think Care Bears is one of the most iconic toy lines of all time. So when did, I think you said it earlier, but let's refresh everyone's memory. When did Care Bears come out and kind of what's the story behind them?
So, in order to tell you this story, I'm going to go back to 1977. Muriel Farion, I apologize if that name is not said correctly, was actually the original concept creator of Care Bears, as well as Strawberry Shortcake.
Got it.
She worked for American Greeting, and in 1977, she was asked to create a line of girly cards, so PC, and she drew Strawberry Shortcake. And because it was all about flowers and cats and things what do girls love back in the 70s. So she drew Strawberry Shortcake. She then depicted the first concept art for Care Bears. Once Care Bears by the company was considered to be able to be a licensed brand, it was sent to another department. So she created the concept art and then never did any other work on it really, as far to my knowledge, because she was just an employee of American Greetings. She does not own the rights to any of that. She does not get any royalties. So back then, that's what toy companies did. They just used their employees to create something amazing, and then all the millions of dollars were just for the company. So once it was passed on, and if you Google who created it, this is who will come up, not Muriel, Elena and Linda Denham. They were both illustrators for American Greetings as well. They continued on creating the bears in 1981. They also don't receive any royalties, but you can still actually get custom drawings made by Elena. She has an email. Yeah, so she still draws them. And one of my friends, good friends, she actually has a custom Care Bears portrait. And as I mentioned, they were originally designed as greeting cards. The bears were designed to represent human emotions, love, friendship, caring, etc. They were first introduced at a New York City toy fair in 1983 by the company Kenner, which we all know was the original company that made them back in the 1980s. Kenner was also very famous for Star Wars action figures and Strawberry Shortcake. Originally, there were only 10 bears that were created: Tenderheart, Cheer, Bedtime, Birthday Wish, Good Luck, Friend, Love a Lot, Funshine, and Grumpy.
Grumpy.
Now, yeah, I don't know if anyone picks up on this, but Grumpy is really the only negative emotional Care Bear. It has negative emotions. This was because he was created to balance all the sweetness from the other Care Bears. They're like, this doesn't feel right. We need a grumpy. So that's why he was created. And since then, the only other bear that I can think of that even comes close to maybe like a negative-ish emotion would be Oopsie Bear. That was like in 2007. But they're all sweetness and love and joy. So 10 bears originally, and then they added Share Bear and Champ Bear and Secret Bear. So that's basically how they started.
Yeah, and you bring up the greeting card thing, and okay, this is great because I didn't know that it was the same person who made the strawberry shortcake, and I knew there was a lot of issues with that later on after strawberry shortcake became really successful. I mean, I do think that Farion, I think that's how you say the name. I think
Right.
she did try to sue
Oh,
American
did
greeting
she?
cards. I think so. Don't quote me on that, people. I'd have to go back and listen to my strawberry shortcake episode, but it's pretty crazy how they were allowed to get away with that because, yes, like you said, they just completely take these ideas from people and then run it as their own. And then sometimes, like with strawberry shortcake or Care Bears, they become massively, massively successful. And that's what I'm going to guess happened with Care Bears. Were these pretty instantly successful?
Yes, I'll just quickly before I forget, Muriel does have an Instagram. I don't know if you follow her. It's at Outer Thin Air Studio, where she posts a lot of strawberry shortcake content. She posts sketches. She's got 200,000 or so followers. So that's really nice to be able to see her potentially maybe getting the dues that she's owed or deserves for creating this. So were they successful off the bat? Well, pretty much. I'm going to go into some dollars here. In the first 2 years, they sold $40 million worth of greeting cards, and that's back in the 80s. In the first 5 years, Care Bear merch brought in $2 billion in retail sales. They were popular enough to distribute the license to other toy companies in other countries. Argentina were under the license for Chromie. Peru Bears were created by Baza and Little Letty in Mexico. And there were a bunch other, like lots of countries around the world had the license to make them. They were not made to the standard that, say, the American bears were made. They're all a little bit, I love collecting them because they're so funky and cool and different looking. But yeah, pretty much instantly successful because they had the TV shows as well.
So with the TV show, did they put that out first, or did the Bears start coming out first?
The bears came out first, just
Okay.
like a lot of 80s toys. What they did back then is to increase sales is they created a TV show. They did it with She-Ra, I'm pretty certain as well. They probably did it with My Little Pony because it was in 1982, I think. So it was very common in the 80s to make TV shows after a toy line was released to help with sales. Whereas these days, toys are made after the TV show, if you think of Bluey. Like when Bluey first aired and my kids were younger years ago, there was no Bluey merch.
Right.
But because the show was so popular, they made the merch to meet the demand, whereas it's kind of the other way around. So the first movie wasn't until 1985. So Care Bears had already been on the shelves by then. There were 3 Care Bears movies, 2 TV specials, and a TV series as well. I can't remember what I watched back then. I know I watched Care Bears, whether it was the movie, the TV series. I was so little, I don't remember, but I remember loving it. And I watched it the other day with my children. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. Well, you have the ads on YouTube, but you can still watch it. And my kids I said, do you want to watch this with me? And they were like, no. But then after I put it on, my 9-year-old was sitting there and she's on her iPad, but then she's just all of a sudden watching it. And then my 12-year-old came out and she's sitting there patting the dog and she's also watching it. So yes, no, it was made afterwards.
Okay.
To help sales.
Okay, and like with the TV show and the movie, they all have like all the characters have like storylines and stuff, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, I believe in some of them they do. They talk about, I didn't get that far into it. Honestly, I can't remember watching it as a kid. I'm not a collector who watches all the shows and the movies. The only show that I've gone back and watched as an adult is actually Astro Boy because it was my absolute favorite, and I don't even collect Astro Boy merch. So I think I've heard people in groups, this won't be part of the podcast. I think people in groups talk about, oh, I've just gone back and watched this movie and it talks about how Noble Heart Horse was the leader of the group, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not my area of expertise. So
And with the TV show and the merch and the bears, I mean, there, like you said, there's tons of other merch. Like what else? What else with Care Bears logos and brand on it could you buy?
okay, in the 80s, they made the posable bears, which are these little figurines, and they first were released just by themselves, and then they were released with little accessories that they do have in the cartoons. Love a Lot actually comes with a bunch of flowers. They made playsets like a cloud castle that opens and it has a little spinny thing and a slide that's made of a rainbow, a cloud roller and a car, little car you could sit them in and go around. There were bags, clothes, shoes, slippers, skates, scary Halloween costumes. Do you remember those costumes that they just had the mask? Like that Rainbow
No.
Bright did it.
Oh,
You'd have to
yes.
Google it, but they are terrifying. It's just this mask on this little kid and then like a fur suit, and those costumes are terrifying, but they had those. Toiletries were a big thing, toothbrush holders, soap holders. I actually have some of these myself, porcelain ranges. They had vases, jewelry boxes, photo frames. I have quite a few of those. Key rings, like little figures that were on a keychain. Jewelry, but like for kids. So like
Right.
little kid-size rings and little brooches. Mugs, which you can still get today. Pizza Hut glasses are very popular still today with collectors. Someone released some cups that have these little hats on them for Care Bears. Baby toys. They actually made two baby plush toys called My First Care Bear. One was pink and one was blue. They would not they would not pass today's standard for safety, but they had things like squeakers in the hands and like scrunchy material, and they had a mirror for their belly badge, and their nose would turn around. So they were for little babies. They had puzzles, coloring in books, lunch boxes, thermos. I mean, you name it,
Right.
they made it.
Which
Yeah.
is exactly what my point. Like Care Bears, and this is the same with Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Ponies and Rainbow Bright. These all of those things are all of those brands are very similar in that once things took off, like these companies took full advantage of we're gonna stamp this on everything you can get. Did they have like books that you could read?
Yes, they did actually have books. Care Bear annuals, I think they were called. There were quite a few released. I don't collect them personally, but they were hardback. Yes, and they had all this stuff in them. You could collect them. I know friends that have them. They definitely had storybooks as well. They still make storybooks and have done since the 80s for Care Bears all throughout the years. My kids had some 2000 Care Bear books when they were younger. So they really made every possible thing you could think of.
Yeah, that's how I used to always convince my grandma to buy me a toy. Is I'd be like, but it has a book too, and she'd kind of always cave for it with that because it'd be like me reading too. So, I
It's
love that and
educational.
educational for sure. And like, I think it helps a lot for play when you're a kid if you can have something and you have something to read and it kind of gives you a story and an idea of where to take your imagination with. So I always talk about how important that is. So Care Bears are blowing up the 80s. Like I would say it's up there with the top toys ever sold. And then I mean, I definitely remember Care Bears as a kid, but maybe it was just more vintage. But like in the 90s, they kind of had a little bit of a dip. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. So when I did some looking into this, I mean, I already knew that there was a dip based on how many bears that were made, but I didn't actually know the reason. So due to the success of eco shows like Captain Planet, which I loved as a kid, race home from school to watch Captain Planet, Kenner produced an environmentally friendly set of Care Bears. Now, when I say that, they weren't made using environmentally friendly products like they do these days. They actually make Care Bears out of recycled water bottles. They're called resoftables. But back in the 90s, I'm pretty sure that wasn't why they were environmentally friendly. They got redesigned belly badges that were made of satin and represented something good about the world. A new bear called Proud Heart Bear was introduced representing that America was great. This is not a joke. It's
Oh.
now called America Cares Care Bear, and it has the stars and stripes as a belly badge. The only country, oh, except for Canada actually, who has True North Bear, but that's only been a recent remake of that. There was only ever a prototype. So yeah, Proud Heart Bear, but it was later renamed America Cares. I think because the Proud Heart cat is too similar, I would say.
Mm.
So that range only lasted about a year as they look nothing like the original Care Bears. You'd have to, if you Googled environmental Care Bears to see them on your screen, I don't actually own any because I'm not a fan. And their new look was not well received because they strayed so far from the original concept. And the same thing happened with My Little Pony with their
Yep.
Generation 2, one of the most disliked generations, except for now G5, which is the latest version, because they just went off the rails with them. They also actually, which a lot of people don't know about, they also made some beanie Care Bears to try and compete with Beanie Babies.
Ah,
So they're like beans. As you
right.
can see here, people on the podcast won't be able to see, but you can Google little beanie Care Bears. Let me just see if they say anything about it. They're called beanlings. It's worth noting, and they weren't successful. These did not take off. But it is worth noting that even though at the time these lines were not successful, they are still worth more money today than Beanie Babies.
Okay.
You know, the big Beanie Babies aren't worth anything. You see
Right.
them in auctions all the
Exactly.
time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And at the time, people thought, well, this is going to send my kid to college. There was actually another company that made 3 Care Bears, Shopco. They made a cheer, a bedtime, and a tender heart. And these are actually, in my opinion, the plush that look most like actual bears. I do own those. They are, I wouldn't say rare, but you don't see them every day on eBay. I think that was just it. It kind of, they just couldn't compete with what was going on at the time. And that happens with all toy lines. They have their moments and they quietly go into the background while something big comes out. But yeah, Beanie Babies, I mean, Barbie was still massive in the 90s. So they just couldn't compete at the time. And then the reboot,
Yeah, so there's a reboot. So I just quickly I want to say like the thing that is so again, I'm going back to like how iconic these are. It's like this is the type of toy that can have a massive flop era and kind of go away in the background but then come back. So let's talk about that. So everything dipped kind of in the 90s and that's when I was growing up. So maybe that's why I don't have such a close connection with Care Bears just because when I loved Beanie Babies. Like Beanie Babies were everything when I was growing up, right? And
right?
so in the 2000s, Care Bears kind of comes back. So how do they go about that?
Well, I think to your point there, just quickly before I get into it as well, is enough time passes that a new generation gets interested in the toys as well. And then the nostalgia is there for the original collectors. So in 2001, the original, we were all 20. And if you're a Generation X as well, we're 20 and plus. The nostalgia value for us is there. Plus, we've got all these new kids coming in and thinking, wow, look at this awesome range. So the 2001 reboot was done by Playalong, who acquired the license because
Of course they did.
the 20th anniversary line that they did was amazing because they remade all of the bears from the 80s in the original colors with the 80s belly badges, including the cousins. So they made a Noble Heart plush 8-inch beanie. It was a Hot Topic exclusive. It's the most sought after from that line still to today, going for hundreds of dollars on eBay. Spoiler alert, I got mine for $40 at
Nice.
AU on Marketplace. That was before 2020 when everything just went.
Woo. Yep.
The second most sought after is the pig, because a pig was never made in the 80s, even though he appeared in the cartoons. Only prototypes exist of the pig, Treat Heart Pig. So that's pretty, collectors love that. Not everybody can get a Noble Heart horse. I actually don't own one myself because I refuse to pay thousands of dollars for one. So, that's a big thing for collectors, finally getting the plush that you always wanted as a kid and couldn't get because it was a UK exclusive or it was never really made into an actual developed bear. So that was great. The anniversary also looked like the bears similar. I don't have one in front of me, but they still almost had this face shape and they were very soft and very, very cute and cuddly. So that did quite well. After the anniversary line, they changed the look of the bears and introduced new characters like Hopeful Heart Bear and Thanks a Lot Bear. With that new line that they introduced with Hopeful Heart Bear and Thanks a Lot Bear, the design was changed, but they also changed the colours of some of the original bears from the 80s and their tummy symbols.
And these
Share
are
Bear,
let me interrupt you really quick. And these are all by Play Along, you said?
yes.
Okay.
I don't know whose idea it was. I'm assuming someone at Play Along.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from other collectors that maybe some of the original colours were a bit boring and they wanted to brighten them up a bit. So, yes.
Well, I just wanted to. It's always going back to Play Along, for me at least, because Play Along is actually who did the Britney Spears dolls.
Right.
And I think also during this time, when you're talking about them rebooting Care Bears, I think they were also rebooting Cabbage Patch Kids as well.
They've been rebooting those for years and years.
Yeah.
Like they still reboot them today, yeah.
It's just so funny because it always comes back to Play Along with a lot of these vintage toys when they're trying to bring something back. Play Along did a lot of that in their time. Anyway, continue.
And the last change that still, it bothers me and it bothers most collectors that were from the 80s, is that they changed Share Bear's tummy symbol from a milkshake with 2 straws, because you're sharing a milkshake, to 2 lollipops. From what I've heard, it's because they thought sharing a milkshake with 2 straws was unhygienic.
Okay.
I don't know if they've ever met a child, but my children would drop lollipops on the ground and then stick them straight back in their mouth.
Absolutely.
So I really don't understand that. They are, when they do retro Share Bears, they often come out with one with a milkshake now and a lollipops version. So they do kind of understand that really irks collectors, because it was such a beautiful, intricate belly badge. And when it's on an original bear like this one I have here, you can see the stitching. I mean, this is upside down, but the stitching, it's just so beautiful. And they really dumbed down the belly badges a lot for all the Care Bears, not just them. So in the 80s, the belly badges were all stitched and these beautiful, intricate pieces of art. And as they've gone along, they've just made them less and less and less, more detailed, and they just don't look the same. So after Play Along, Namco, that's how you pronounce it, acquired the license, and the quality went dramatically downhill. Care Bears were just humming along in the background till about 2016, I think I'm going to say, in the US, when new ones were produced. In the US, they didn't create new bears, they just recreated Grumpy, Cheer, Share, but with a different look. They had glass eyes and plastic eyes. So that was a real change from the original Care Bears, who only ever had eyes like this when they went to the glass, like how Beanie Boos have those glass eyes. They did a whole range of those. They did start creating new characters about that time, though, as well, which is when we got Sweet Sakura Bear, which apparently Eleanor had a hand in designing and making, but that was only an Asian Singapore release, I think, and you really couldn't get it in the US without paying, or Australia without paying huge fees, and they created Christmas Wishes. So back then in Australia, I started collecting in about 2015. Back then, there were 4 Care Bears you could buy in Australia at shops, at Big W specifically. There was Share, Grumpy, Funshine, and Cheer, and they were 13-inch, and they had beanies. That was it. That was all that was here, unless you found secondhand ones on Marketplace, and the prices were really low. Care Bears were not desired. I could watch something on Marketplace for 3 weeks and it not sell.
Right.
You can't do that these days with something that's rare anyway. I found a really rare bear for $15 from someone on Marketplace, and I was able to snap that up because nobody was buying them back then. It wasn't until about 2018 in Australia where Head Start acquired the licensing and started producing new Care Bears for the AU market, which in turn created a huge demand and price increase for bears from 2020 to about 2023. Scalping was out of control among eBay, Marketplace, and Facebook groups. There were people that were coming from other communities who never collected Care Bears in their life, but were like, right, these are what's hot right now. I'm going to buy them all and then double their price when I resell them. And I know it happens in every toy community as well, but this is the first time I'd seen it since collecting in Care Bears. Prices are just starting to come down now. in beginning of 2025, especially for rare and maverick Care Bears.
It's like so crazy how like we're still seeing the effects of the pandemic price skyrocketing because like that's really what happened. And I've talked about this. I mean, it's something people bring up in almost every episode where it's like I said, it's crazy how the pandemic really shifted the toy collecting market. I mean, there was always scalpers forever and always, right? But like really everything, especially with like Barbie and Care Bears and all that stuff, suddenly everyone just wanted to get a piece of it. And it's just because people were bored at home, you know? And it's like crazy because while I do notice prices going down on things, they're still much higher than they ever were. And it's like we're still dealing with that kind of thing, which I just think is insane. But I didn't know this about Care Bears. But talking about rarity, I mean, you've brought up a lot of things like prototypes and difficult bears to get. What
Mavericks would be the other one you're looking for, a maverick.
is that the rarest Care Bear there is, or?
No.
Oh,
So I'll go through that a little bit. So talking about rarity of Care Bears, of original Care Bears, most of the 80s Care Bears are really easy to find and are not worth much. Obviously, if it's mint in box, it still has all the freckles, it's got a tag attached, and it's very minty, they are worth a little bit more. But the cheer bear you've had for 40 years that is well loved isn't worth much or anything. I recently saw someone list a well loved bedtime bear on eBay for $500 just the other day.
oh goodness.
Yes. So the UK exclusive bears are harder to find and worth more. So the UK exclusive bears obviously were only available in the UK, and back then there wasn't in eBay, there wasn't Marketplace, there wasn't all these international ways we could, Marketplace or chats or Facebook groups or where international communities could connect and sell through. So the UK exclusive bears were Daydream, Surprise, Harmony, and True Heart. Sea Friend and Forest Friend were actually created for the World Wildlife Federation. A lot of these people will say these are really hard to find, they're really expensive. I haven't found that to be the case. You just have to wait. One pops up. I mean, you might not find any on eBay one day, and then the next week there are 3. Some of the cousins were actually UK exclusive as well, which adds to their rareness, I guess. Now, if you were to ask a collector, what is the rarest Care Bear, most people will say Noble Heart Horse. It's because the one we all want. As I said, I don't own that horse because prices range in American dollars anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, and the dollar's like $1.50 to $1 here, and that's just obscene amount of money for one bear. There was a bear called Take Care Bear, which was released as a promotion for a cough medicine advertisement.
Okay.
It was like a bluey green and it had a red heart on it. I have seen pictures of it in collector groups of people owning them. I don't know how many were made, but I can't imagine that many were made due to its rarity. I've never seen one pop up on eBay. Another rare bear, which a lot of people don't even know exists, is called Prize Bear. It was created for a competition in America and also in Canada, and only 100 were made. 2 winners from each state had to write in an essay or something about how much they love Care Bears, and 2 people from each state were picked to get these prize bears. Now, they weren't bears that were specially made, really. They were just 18-inch Care Bears with a belly badge stuck across the top. Mavericks, they're also worth a lot of money depending on which ones they are. There are some Mavericks that are much more common than others and are easy to find. I distinguish Mavericks from era Care Bears. So a Maverick in my mind is a Care Bear, say, let's go with Cheer Bear, but it has a tender heart symbol on it. So it's got the wrong tummy symbol. An era bear in my mind it has the correct symbol, but it's upside down or sideways.
Okay.
I got one recently off eBay. It's just a manufacturing mistake. Whereas Maverick bears, there's a bit of, some of the Maverick bears which you might see out there are definitely fake. Yeah, so that's the hard thing with Mavericks, is to determine whether or not they're real, but they can be worth quite a lot of money. Also, sometimes there are Mavericks that don't look like the actual version of the bear. And I've got a couple of those, like a Funshine that I have that doesn't look like the normal Funshine that came out. So, and the belly badge isn't the same. I couldn't tell you where they came from, whether they were practice bears, people creating them in the factory. whether the tummy symbol was just a different version they may have been going with, but then decided to go with the other one. There's a lot of conjecture about that. There were some I Love You bears, which were created for charity back in the 80s, which have I Love You written on them, but there's several different versions. They are also harder to find because they were in the UK. Now, prototypes are rare and are worth a bit. I have seen them on eBay for $1,000 US plus. Often they have hand-painted eyes and they don't have the normal Care Bear tag that you would see here. They just have like a little white cotton strip that folds over. Or it might even say prototype, not for
Sale,
commercial release. Yes, so prototypes, I don't own any prototypes. I do know some people that do, and they're amazing.
It's incredible. Wow. I figured with such an iconic toy line that there was going to be some major, more sought after stuff. And of course, prototypes are always what everyone wants to get their hands on. One question I did want to ask you when it comes to rarity, not necessarily with price. Obviously, Care Bears was a worldwide phenomenon. Like you could get them anywhere, but was it more difficult to get certain bears, like let's say in Australia, especially during their peak, or?
I was only a little kid, so I just got Love a Lot. The basic bears were available pretty much anywhere that Kenner wanted to distribute them, I think. The bears that were probably harder to get in the 80s were the UK exclusive ones, because you'd have to know someone in the UK, maybe go to a visit to the UK, find them that way. Because you do still find those bears in Australia and people have had them since a kid, but I had a friend from high school who had a Harmony bear, and I think she said an uncle brought it over for her from the UK. Definitely there were some of them that were harder to get, the UK exclusive cousins, but as for the normal bears, they were just released here like every other toy release. Nowadays, though, with the invention of the internet,
Yes.
eBay and Marketplace, because you can use Marketplace even if you don't live in a country, you just change your location. And Amazon, it's a lot easier for collectors to access newer bears as they release. Often, though, it can still require having a friend in the US or Australia or Japan or Thailand to acquire these bears at cost and not inflated eBay prices. I'm lucky enough that I have friends in different places and we get them for each other. We pack them in a big box and send them over because eBay shipping is a nightmare, the cost of eBay shipping.
What I wanted to get into next was where Care Bears is at today. So, I mean, I have a few. I did get one, but it's up on a shelf, so I can't bring it down. But I can see, like, the box behind you. It's just like that. So tell me where Care Bears is at today.
So Basic Fun owns the license in the US and maybe the UK. I know that I see these bears pop up in the UK in shops. Head Start owns them in Australia, and they look different to this. They might create the same characters, but the bears don't look the same. So that's why people still want the American one and the Australian version, because they might have the same belly badge and be the same bear, but they look completely different. Also, Head Start in Australia has started re-releasing all the cousins, and Americans are super mad about that because they were only released at our post office, Australia Post.
Oh, those are cute.
Yeah, at a store like that, you can't order them online necessarily. You can now, I think, after the hype died down. But Thailand Care Bears, I don't know if you've heard of Thailand Care Bears. They have a whole range of bears, and they've started recreating all the original bears not all in the original colours. They did do a pink secret bear, but what I love about this range is they've stayed consistent with the design each time they release a new bear. It looks the same. I can't say the same for Head Start in Australia. They started creating bears with the glass eyes in a certain type of packaging, and then they changed it to bears with sewn-on eyes in a different type of packaging, a completely different shape. And collectors, it's annoying because you can't stack the boxes. None of the bears look the same. And what they'll do is they'll create 10 bears in one line and then start again. And the first bear is always Cheer Bear. We don't need 6,000 Cheer Bears. We want you to create the bears that we haven't had.
Right.
The Basic Fun bears have much better quality than the Australian bears do, in my opinion. So when Head Start created the original batch of bears, this with the glass eyes, the quality wasn't too bad. They got glitter through their fur and, they're kind of great. But this is one of the most recent releases. It's Grumpy Bear. It's a Christmas Grumpy Bear. And the fur comes out. It's just the quality's just not there. You have to go to the store and pick the one you want because the face might be off, there might be a line here. They're just not, the production value is pretty average. They're done cheaply and then sold for a ridiculous price. So
When toy lines get lazy with something that is so special to people, it's just like you have a right to be irked. Like, I get it totally.
there's also a new line in Japan being released, and I love that line because once again, they're staying consistent with the design and they're just releasing the new bears as they do. I actually have a friend that helps me out with those because they're quite hard to find. I have used a personal shopper once before via Instagram, and she bought me a couple from a shop when they sold out really quickly. I've been able to get a few on Amazon, but they don't pop up consistently on Amazon like with all of them. So they're quite cute. I do collect those. So Care Bears are still going very strong. Just recently, they collaborated with Hello Kitty. I'm not sure if you saw that release. They do so many makeup and jewelry brands. Enamel pins is a huge. I've got a lot of enamel pins. Clothing lines, as you know, they're everywhere. Care Bears everywhere. Crocs. Have you seen the collaboration with Crocs recently? Yep. Loungefly obviously has done wallets and bags, and Loungefly have also done some pins. Funko have done a bunch of them. And as you can see, my necklace here, this is an Australian company called Erstwilder. In 2020, they did their first collaboration with Care Bears, which sold out immediately. And I didn't get on the train for that. And I only bought one on the website. So ended up paying, because they were a limited number because of the pandemic, the prices went crazy. But then they did 2 more releases with Care Bears after that. I think that there's six necklaces and about 27 brooches, and there's enamel pins. I do have all of the resin stuff except for earrings. I don't wear them. They go on display in my cabinets because they're like works of art.
Right, yeah.
They're very detailed. So they're always doing new collaborations with different people to keep Care Bears going. So I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon.
I don't either. I think I've seen so much Care Bear stuff recently that it's, and I'm going to Walmart in just a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of browse around and just see how many different Care Bear things I can find. Because I do need to get the pink Care Bear. I have the purple one and the blue, the Barbie, so I'm gonna pick that up later. But yeah, I mean, it just sounds like Care Bears. I mean, a lot of nostalgic brands are having comebacks like this, but it does seem like Care Bears is kind of leading the pack in that way with just so much stuff that is, at least here in the States, readily available. You don't need to special order it or anything. Like, you can literally just go down the street to Target or Walmart and you can find quite a few things. I only have a couple more questions for you, and so this one is going to be maybe a little bit difficult, but do you have a favorite piece in your collection, a favorite Care Bear piece that you have?
Well, I have a couple. I have lots of favorites, but my favorite actual Care Bear, and I really couldn't honestly tell you why, is the original Share Bear. I didn't even have this bear as a kid. I just love the design and the detail in the belly badge, and I just think Share Bear, it's just so special. Other than that, Mavericks are my worst nightmare. Well, they're not really my worst nightmare, but they're my bank account's worst nightmare. I love Mavericks, but my favorite line is the OG line, obviously. Oh, the other thing I love to collect are Care Bears made in other countries, which I've told you about. Peru. I recently got a bunch of Peru bears. I found a seller on Instagram who posts directly to me from Peru, and this is look at his little cheeks. It's like so he's got nuts for the winter. That's a friend bear. I've got a lot of bears from overseas.
Amazing. So first of all, I think that pretty much wraps up the Care Bear stuff. Thank you so much. That was so interesting to me. But you collect a lot of other stuff. You have a great Instagram page. So I want you to tell me just a couple of the other brands that you really get into that are super special for you, because you do collect. I mean, your Instagram's amazing.
Thank you. As a child, I was a Rainbow Bright fanatic. I had a Rainbow Bright doll. She didn't make it to adulthood. I don't know what happened. I think my first one got stolen at kindy, and then the second one, I went through another brother and sister, so she could have got trashed. So Rainbow Bright Vintage, and then the new releases where they've made those posable dolls by TLS Toys. I love those. Strawberry Shortcake Vintage. My Nana used to make me like embroidered strawberry shortcake outfits. I still have a skirt from her, bless her. Tonka Keepers. I don't know if you remember those. I've got some behind me up here. they had like a little key and you could put things in them.
Mm-hmm.
The big ones had a little key. Fairy tale birds, which were kind of an extension of My Little Pony. These birds that sat on a little ledge, and they had a whole play set with them as well. I've got their house. So they were amazing. Barbies, mostly 80s, but I do have a 1962 Barbie, blonde with the curls at the front. And I do love a lot of the Silkstone Barbies when they're released as the retro items. I do also love collecting the Funko Barbies. I have all of those. A lot of people don't like them, but yeah, my most recent favorite purchase of Barbie was Mint in the Box Peaches and Cream.
Nice. Well, Vintage Grunge Girl, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I think Care Bears are so cute. I can't wait to go look at what I'm going to find at Walmart today. But please tell everyone where they can find you on the internet so they can see more of your amazing collection.
Well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Threads as Vintage Grunge Girl. But on TikTok, I'm Vintage Grunge Girl 27.
Thank you so much. And we'll keep in touch and I'll let you know what I find tonight at Walmart.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Vintage Grunge Girl. I had such a great time. And like I said, Care Bears are so iconic. I just had to have an episode about them, and I knew you'd be the perfect guest. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Next, guys, I don't even have my schedule in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I am just doing a doll check-in mini episode. So there's lots to talk about with that. So that'll be coming out next week. Tons of amazing new episodes coming for you guys later this spring and into the summer. I cannot wait to share it all with you. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're enjoying, please give me 5 stars, leave me a review. It really helps. Follow me on all the things, and I will talk with you guys next time.